It was around 2:15 a.m., and I was doing my regular patrol. It was one of those nights where everything feels like it's holding its breath. The streets were dead empty, the air thick and heavy with silence. It's a small town. Nothing ever really happens after midnight. If anything, you get the odd bar fight or some drunk stumbling around. But that night, it felt different. I was driving down a quiet street when the radio crackled. At first, I thought it was just the usual static. But then, I heard a voice. A man. "Officer, please. I think someone's in my house." His voice was shaking, and I could hear his breath, ragged and quick. I grabbed the mic and responded, trying to stay calm. "What do you mean? What exactly happened?" But then, there was silence. Complete silence. For a moment, I thought the call dropped, but then I heard him breathing again. Fast, frantic. Then the line cut out, just like that. I tried calling back immediately, but it went straight to voicemail. No answer. I wasn't far from the address, so I figured I'd swing by. Something about his voice, it just didn't sit right with me. I pulled up to the address, but when I got there, it was strange. There was no house, not even a porch light on, nothing. Just open land stretching out into the darkness. The only building I saw was a small farmhouse a little further down the road. I thought maybe I'd ask them if they knew something. I knocked on the door. A man opened it, looking tired and confused. "Can I help you, officer?" I told him I'd gotten a call from the address I was at. Asked if anyone lived nearby. He gave me a strange look. "No, officer. There's no other house around here for miles. It's just us." I was starting to feel uneasy. I thanked him, but as I walked back to my car, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. I checked the radio again and tried calling the number, but still nothing. Straight to voicemail. I got into my car, ready to head back to the station, but that's when I saw it. A figure. In my rearview mirror. Sitting in the back seat. I froze. I could just make out the outline. Someone sitting there, hunched forward, watching me. I couldn't see their face, but I knew they were there. I didn't even have time to react before I felt a sharp blow to the back of my head. Then everything went black. When I woke up, I was in a hospital bed. The lights overhead too bright, my head throbbing. I tried to sit up, but a nurse was there, gently pushing me back down. "Take it easy, officer. You've had a rough night." I was disoriented, piecing things together. I remembered the call, the empty land, the figure in my car, but it all felt like a bad dream. And yet, the pain in my head was real. A couple of fellow officers came in. They told me they'd found me unconscious in my patrol car near the farmhouse. No sign of anyone else, just me. "What about the man in the back seat?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Did you see him?" They exchanged a look. One of them spoke. "No one else. Just you." They searched the whole area, checked with the farmhouse, but no one had seen anything. I lay back cold and confused, but I knew what I saw, or at least I thought I did. Days passed, and I tried to convince myself that maybe it was just exhaustion, a trick of the mind. But every time I closed my eyes, I could still see that figure, those eyes in the rearview mirror. And when I looked up the address later, I found something strange. There was no house there, no record, just empty land, abandoned for decades. I still can't shake the feeling that whatever happened that night, it wasn't over. Before we get into the next story, if you come for the first time, please make sure to subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon for upcoming scary stories. We need your support. Please share these stories with your friends and family. Thanks. It was a typical afternoon when the call came in. A woman had been served multiple eviction notices, and when the deputies tried to serve her the final one, she didn't take it well. She barricaded herself inside her apartment with a knife, and things were escalating fast. They called for backup. I was part of the K-9 unit, so I was one of the officers sent in. By the time I got there, you could feel the tension. The building was old, narrow hallways, closed in tight. The air was thick with something I couldn't quite name. We were told to wait outside while the initial officers tried negotiating, but the shouting soon stopped. That kind of silence, it's never good. We were given the go-ahead to move in. I could hear the officers shouting through the door, trying to talk her down, but I couldn't hear her respond. It was like she wasn't even listening. The door busted open and we rushed in. My dog, who'd been tense the whole time, started growling low, like he knew something wasn't right. I stepped into the hallway, and that's when I saw her. She was standing in the doorway, knife in hand, her eyes wide and unblinking. No hesitation. I don't know what happened next. I tried to back up, but she lunged. In the tight hallway, there was nowhere to go. I felt the knife slice across my chest, sharp and cold. The pain hit me like a freight train. Everything happened so fast, I couldn't even call for help. I just stumbled back, trying to stay on my feet. Then, in the chaos, I heard shots. The woman fell. It felt like the whole world went silent. I was bleeding, my chest burning, but it was like time had frozen. I remember lying there, trying to speak, but nothing came out. It wasn't until one of the other officers came over that they realized I'd been stabbed. They rushed me out of there. I barely remember the ambulance ride, just the sirens, the sound of my heart racing in my ears. The doctors said I was lucky. The knife missed anything vital. But that pain was something I'll never forget. I found out later her name was Yan Lee. She was 47 and she'd been fighting eviction for months. She'd even threatened a maintenance worker with the same knife the day before. But something about that moment still haunts me. The look in her eyes when she attacked. It was like she wasn't even human anymore. It was late, just past 2 a.m., when I was driving through a quiet residential neighborhood in San Francisco. The fog was so thick you could barely see the street signs, just these faint pools of light from the street lamps cutting through the mist. I was about halfway down the block when I saw it. A house on the corner, set back from the road. It looked abandoned, the windows dark and boarded up. The kind of place that feels like it has a story, even if you don't know what it is. But then something caught my eye. There was a shadow in the upstairs window. At first I thought I was imagining it. Maybe it was just the way the fog was playing tricks on me. But as I stared, the figure didn't move. It was standing still. I felt this cold rush down my spine. I parked across the street, grabbed my flashlight, and started walking up the driveway. The door was cracked open, as if someone had forgotten to shut it. I stepped inside. The house smelled old. Dust, mildew, the kind of smell you get in places that have been abandoned for years. I shone my flashlight around, and that's when I saw it. Broken furniture, torn wallpaper, and a thick layer of dust covering everything. The silence was suffocating. Every step I took echoed in the emptiness. I made my way upstairs, following the strange feeling that something or someone was up there. The door to the room was slightly ajar. I pushed it open, and that's when I saw her. A woman, tied to a chair, her eyes wide with fear, looking at me like she couldn't believe I was real. "He's coming," she whispered, her voice shaking. I cut her free, helped her out of there as fast as I could. She told me she'd known the man from college. He'd been obsessed with her, watching her for years. When we got outside, the backup arrived and took her to safety. But I couldn't shake the feeling that the house was still holding on to something, like it had seen too many dark things.